Flight 10 is closer than ever. After multiple delays, it marks SpaceX's next chance to secure a breakthrough, unlocking a vital phase of preparation for Starship's future. Every element of the mission has been planned with precision, with key tasks designed to prove Starship's true capabilities. So how will Flight 10 play out? Which objectives matter most, and why are they crucial for the program's next steps? SpaceX has now completed all testing of the Starship hardware, which means the stage is finally set for the next flight. With preparations behind us, the spotlight has shifted to the skies, and everyone is asking the same question. What exactly will happen during this upcoming mission? As always, SpaceX has been quick to share updates. This includes a review of the issues that occurred during Flight 9 as well as the detailed plan for the upcoming Flight 10. Since we already covered Flight 9's setbacks in a previous episode, it is now time to turn our full attention to the new flight and its objectives. Mark your calendars because Flight 10 is scheduled for Sunday, August 24th. This date falls within the launch window that was previously confirmed by the Navigation Center. Liftoff is set for 6:30 p.m., a timing that provides the added benefit of allowing daylight observation of both the booster and the ship during their respective landings, even though those landing zones are located half a world apart. With this foundation in place, the script for the flight has been carefully designed. Let us begin with the Superheavy booster, which will once again be at the heart of this mission. Right from the start, SpaceX sparked excitement by announcing the upcoming flight will continue to expand the operating envelope on the Superheavy booster. With multiple landing burn tests planned, this means the booster's descent phase will be the true highlight of the flight. However, the company also made it clear that there will not be a catch attempt this time. Instead, SpaceX confirmed the Super Heavy booster will attempt these experiments while on a trajectory to an offshore landing point in the Gulf of Mexico and will not return to the launch site for catch. The reason for this is simple but important. SpaceX is treating Flight 10 as an opportunity to run a series of flight experiments that are designed to gather critical real-world performance data. These data points will help the company refine future flight profiles and prepare for possible off-nominal scenarios that could arise during more advanced missions. The sequence will begin with the familiar ascent, followed by stage separation. Once separation takes place, the Super Heavy booster will perform an active flip. This maneuver will be assisted by hot staging, where the thrust of the Starship engine helps push the booster into its intended trajectory. This process, which was proven successful during Flight 9, is intended to optimize fuel usage and extend the booster's overall reach. Greater efficiency in this phase directly translates into an improved payload capacity for Starship, a key factor for future operational missions. Next, the booster will conduct a boost-back burn using 13 engines from the center and inner ring. This is a particularly challenging maneuver that demands absolute engine reliability. SpaceX will need to ensure that the problems encountered during Flights 7 and 8, where engine instability caused setbacks, do not reappear during this test. But the real focus of Flight 10 lies in its landing burns. SpaceX has explained that the primary test objectives for the booster will be focused on its landing burn and will use unique engine configurations. Among these tests is one of the most ambitious challenges yet, completing a landing burn with only 2 engines. In this scenario, one of the 3 central engines will be intentionally disabled, forcing the booster to rely on a backup engine from the middle ring to carry out the burn. If successful, this will allow Super Heavy to hover above the ocean surface with 2 engines alone. Once the test objectives are met, both engines will shut down, and the booster will fall into the water as planned. Of course, before any of this can happen, SpaceX must ensure that the booster's engines are performing flawlessly. The increased difficulty of these tests comes with greater risk. During Flight 9, the booster encountered an engine failure during its landing burn, and that problem brought the mission to an early conclusion. For Flight 10, solving this issue and demonstrating stable performance will be absolutely vital. After the Super Heavy's daring journey, attention will naturally turn to the ship itself, where another series of ambitious tests are set to unfold. Just like the booster, the ship will not yet attempt a full return to the launch site. Instead, it will once again be brought down in the ocean, allowing SpaceX to focus entirely on pushing the envelope of testing without the added risk of a precision landing. SpaceX explained its reasoning clearly. The flight test includes several experiments focused on enabling Starship's upper stage to reach the launch site. In other words, what we will see during this flight is groundwork. Before the ship can ever attempt a return to Texas, it must prove that it can withstand the challenges of a full orbit, then safely re-enter. To do that requires not only more powerful engines, but also far more advanced protection systems. That is why one of the key highlights of this mission will be the relight test of one of ship's engines while in space. This will be attempted with a sea-level engine, repeating a feat that was first conducted during Flight 6. This ability to restart engines while in orbit is absolutely critical. It ensures that Starship will be able to adjust its trajectory, execute orbital maneuvers, and eventually bring itself home. Preparations for this include a single engine test performed before flight, which SpaceX has emphasized as an important step in ensuring readiness. But the engines are only part of the story. But the engines are only one part of the story. The real trial by fire lies in the ship's protection system, more commonly known as the heat shield. For this mission, SpaceX has revealed some bold changes. A significant number of tiles have been deliberately removed from vulnerable areas of the ship. The purpose of this is to stress test how these regions behave under the brutal heat and pressure of re-entry. At the same time, SpaceX will introduce metallic tiles for the very first time. These tiles will be paired with an active cooling system, creating a new approach to safeguarding the vehicle. If successful, this experiment could shape the way Starship survives future descents through Earth's atmosphere. Another notable adjustment to the heat shield will take place at the catching points. Located on both sides of the vehicle, once again, SpaceX will install simulation fittings to mimic the structure of the real catching system that will eventually allow Starship to be caught by the launch tower. These points will be tested for both thermal and structural resilience, and while they will still be protected by tiles, their results will form the foundation for refining the design of the actual catching hardware. In addition to this, SpaceX is addressing specific problems that were discovered in past flights. During Flight 6, engineers identified hotspots forming along the tile lines. The company will apply a smoothed and tapered edge to some of the tiles in an effort to distribute heat more evenly and prevent concentrated damage. Of course, beyond all of those experiments, the fundamental role of the heat shield remains unchanged. It must protect the ship during re-entry and allow it to land in the best possible condition. This is vital for enabling future catch attempts. Attention will also be given to the ship's aft flaps, which have often been a weak point in previous missions. These control surfaces are critical for guiding the vehicle through its atmospheric descent. For Flight 10, SpaceX has made it clear that the re-entry profile will be deliberately designed to push the flaps to their structural limits, particularly at the moment of maximum dynamic pressure. By doing this, engineers can better understand the stress tolerances of the flaps and refine the durability for future flights. Beyond testing its core systems, the ship also has a payload mission. This time, SpaceX plans to deploy 8 Starlink simulation satellites. These satellites are similar in size to the upcoming next-generation Starlink models. However, unlike operational deployments, these will be released only at suborbital altitudes. They are designed to burn up during re-entry, ensuring safety even in the unlikely case that debris survives. By doing this, SpaceX gains valuable experience with deployment mechanisms while still maintaining a cautious approach. Taken together, the missions of both the Superheavy booster and the ship in Flight 10 are defined by experimentation. They are not about showmanship, but about learning, data, and refinement. SpaceX emphasized this point by stating that these trials are intended to continue to provide valuable learnings to inform the design of the next-generation Starship and Superheavy vehicles. With production ramping up inside Star Factory at Starbase alongside new launch and test infrastructure actively being built in Texas and Florida, Starship is poised to continue iterating towards a rapidly and fully reusable launch system. This is why Flight 10 is not just another test. It is a major step forward in SpaceX's journey toward rapid reusability and interplanetary capability. With every risk, every experiment, and every test, the company gets closer to making Starship a reliable workhorse for humanity's future in space. Flight 10 is built on more than just headline tests. It relies on the small but vital steps that make the mission possible. These begin an hour before launch, when Starship and Superheavy are fully loaded with liquid oxygen and liquid methane at cryogenic temperatures. Alongside this, the engines are chilled to prevent thermal shock, cracks, or catastrophic failure once propellant flows. As fueling ends, the water deluge system activates, flooding the pad to protect it from the searing heat and deafening acoustics of 33 Raptors roaring to life. Then comes liftoff. For the 10th time, the world's largest rocket will climb skyward, pushing through Max Q, or the point of maximum aerodynamic stress. At staging altitude, Superheavy shuts down and the ship ignites in a dramatic hot staging sequence, blasting through the new inner stage as the booster flips away. From there, the two stages diverge. Superheavy executes a boost back burn and a hot staging throw step, likely one of the last times this maneuver will be used, before descending toward the Gulf off the coast of Texas. It's in-space work, engine relights, heat shield trials, and possibly Starlink deployments. Then comes reentry, where plasma, extreme heating, and aerodynamic forces test its systems. As it slows through transonic and subsonic speeds, the ship uses its flaps to remain stable before performing its dramatic landing flip. Though it'll splash down at sea, the focus is on refining precision and control for future returns to the launch site. The mission's outcome will determine what comes next. If successful, Flight 11 may attempt the first ever tower catch, a daring leap that Musk has called only a maybe. Even a failed attempt would yield data vital for transitioning to the V3 era. If Flight 10 falls short, the catch may be delayed to early next year, pushing back the timeline for full reusability. That is why this flight carries such weight. Its results will shape the path to 2026, a year when Starship must prove readiness for Moon and Mars campaigns. Every milestone achieved on August 24th will either accelerate or delay that future. The countdown is on, and soon the skies above Starbase will reveal the outcome. Flight 10 could be another turning point in space exploration, marking the moment when years of relentless work converge into progress, or when challenges demand more time. Big news, everyone. SpaceX has officially detailed the issues from Flight 9 and outlined the solutions now in place to resolve them. With confirmation from the FAA, the next launch date is drawing near. At the same time, Blue Origin is preparing to add new Mars payloads to its upcoming New Glenn rocket, while the White House has issued a fresh executive order aimed at promoting commercial launches, a move that, as expected, has sparked debate. At present, SpaceX is targeting August 24th for liftoff, with the launch window opening at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This date gained significant credibility after the Federal Aviation Administration officially closed its mishap investigation into Flight 9, declaring that Flight 10 can proceed. That clearance was a major milestone. It meant that SpaceX had addressed the problems, demonstrated corrective actions, and secured regulatory approval to continue its campaign toward rapid reusability. While more specific updates about Flight 10's technical upgrades and mission objectives will be the subject of another discussion, today the focus rests on the core findings from Flight 9 and the solutions SpaceX has announced. These not only clarify what went wrong, but also highlight the company's evolving strategy to tackle challenges with precision and speed. Starting with Superheavy, the booster faced unique stresses during its descent. SpaceX confirmed that it came down at a higher angle of attack than planned, peaking at about 17 degrees. The landing attempt was also designed to run with only 12 engines active, while incorporating mid-descent flips. These maneuvers were intentional tests, pushing the booster into new territory and gathering data for long-term recovery strategies. None of them were outright failures, but they did set the stage for the anomaly that followed. The turning point came during the landing burn. SpaceX reported what it termed an energetic event at the aft end of the booster. Telemetry cut off just 6 minutes and 22 seconds into the flight at an altitude of about 1 kilometer above the sea. Analysis traced the cause to structural stress on the booster's fuel transfer tube. The higher descent angle created aerodynamic forces beyond what the component was designed to handle. As a result, the tube likely failed, allowing the methane and liquid oxygen to mix in a volatile way, leading to ignition and the loss of the booster. The fix, however, is relatively straightforward for the current fleet of V1 boosters. SpaceX will lower the angle of attack during descent, reducing the aerodynamic loads and preserving structural integrity. For the upcoming V3 booster generation, the company plans to redesign and reinforce the transfer tube entirely, addressing the weakness at its roots and paving the way for more aggressive recovery tests in the future. Turning to the ship, Flight 9 revealed a different but equally critical challenge. After about 3 minutes of engine operation, sensors in the nose cone detected a steady rise in methane levels. By the 5-minute mark, the pressure imbalance between the nose cone and the main fuel tank grew more pronounced. Despite this, Starship's onboard systems compensated, keeping the engines burning long enough to reach planned velocity and achieve second stage engine cutoff. This meant the mission technically completed its ascent objectives, even in the face of a structural issue. The likely cause was damage to the dome of the main fuel tank, which allowed methane to leak upward into the nose cone. This was not merely a leak, but a sign of structural compromise in one of the most essential parts of the ship. While the system's resilience kept the mission on track, the anomaly underscored the need for immediate design reviews and reinforcement. Flight 9 therefore served its purpose. It exposed weaknesses that SpaceX can now address before moving forward. For the booster, it means flying a safer profile while redesign work continues. For the ship, it means investigating methane containment and strengthening critical tank structures. Each solution represents a step toward reliability and brings the program closer to achieving its long-term goal of rapid reuse. When second stage engine cutoff, or SECO, was completed, the underlying problem aboard Starship did not go away. SpaceX explained that the rising pressure inside the nose cone, when combined with the planned nose cone venting, created a significant amount of errors in the vehicle's attitude control. This was not a small deviation, but rather a cascading error that grew worse with time. Eventually, the situation reached a critical point, and the vehicle's automatic fault system stepped in to disable nose cone venting entirely. Because of this, the ship was forced to abort its payload deployment sequence. The specific cause was that the higher-than-expected pressure inside the nose cone generated damaging loads on the mechanism responsible for opening the payload door. In other words, the failure to deploy the payload was not due to the door malfunctioning on its own, as many have speculated. Instead, it was the extreme conditions created by the pressurization problem that forced the system to halt deployment in order to prevent a catastrophic failure. SpaceX reported that the growing attitude error after ascent could still be corrected with the ship's reaction control thrusters, small but vital systems that managed over orientation until nose cone venting resumed. Yet just 40 seconds after venting restarted, liquid methane leaked into the nose cone. This was a critical failure. The cryogenic fuel caused nearby sensors and controllers to plunge in temperature, forcing the onboard systems to trigger passivation. That command shut down Starship's ability to reignite its engines and vented remaining propellant to prevent further risk. From there, the situation unraveled. The ship entered re-entry with an off-nominal attitude, clearly visible on the live stream. It lost stability, then lost contact entirely about 46 minutes into the mission at an altitude of 59 kilometers above the Indian Ocean. SpaceX later confirmed that no flight safety rules were broken and the termination system was never triggered, meaning the anomaly remained within automated limits even as control slipped away. The cause was traced to a failure in the main fuel tank pressurization diffuser, located inside the nose cone on the forward dome. Cameras on board revealed a canister failure, something no pre-flight analysis had predicted. Afterward, SpaceX recreated the failure in ground tests at McGregor, Texas, confirming the root issue. Engineers responded by designing a stronger diffuser that better distributes pressurized gas and reduces structural stresses. The new part underwent extensive qualification testing, surviving flight-like conditions for more than 10 times its expected service life without damage. These upgrades were likely installed on Ship 37, now preparing for Flight 10. Starship's challenges underscore a simple truth. It is still an experimental vehicle. Each mission uncovers new problems, but each anomaly also brings knowledge. Failures are not dead ends, but stepping stones toward resilience, stronger designs, and ultimately a reliable system. SpaceX's progress rests on the cycle of bold testing, rapid learning, and constant iteration. Now the question is whether these lessons will hold in Flight 10. The countdown to August 24th is underway, and the world will soon see if the latest fixes prove their worth. If you're excited for this next leap, reply with GO10 in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe to follow SpaceX's relentless drive toward the future of space exploration. Now let's turn to Blue Origin's New Glenn and its expanding role in the Mars race. Blue Origin has already secured its first interplanetary payload, NASA's ESCAPADE mission, which is scheduled to launch on September 29th. ESCAPADE will study the magnetosphere of Mars, marking a significant milestone for New Glenn as it prepares to make its debut in deep space operations. But the company is not stopping there. Blue Origin recently announced that it will also support NASA's Mars Telecommunications Orbiter, or MTO, a major mission slated for 2028 when Earth and Mars are in favorable alignment. The MTO is designed to become a next-generation communications hub, enabling high-speed continuous data transmission between Earth and Mars. It'll serve as a multi-relay station, drastically improving coverage and reliability for robotic and eventually human missions. Blue Origin will launch this ambitious spacecraft aboard its Blue Ring platform, which the company promotes as both powerful and cost-efficient. According to Blue Origin, MTO is more than just a relay satellite. They describe it as a high-performance spacecraft that builds directly on their prior commercial proposals, including concepts for the Mars Next Generation Relay and Mars Sample Return infrastructure. The orbiter will employ hybrid propulsion, advanced maneuvering capabilities, and large capacity to increase flexibility in launch windows to the Red Planet. Blue Origin has also highlighted the inclusion of edge and AI computing technologies designed to assist with autonomous science operations and mission support once the orbiter is in service on board. With these plans, it is clear that Blue Origin, despite having only recently launched its first orbital mission, is signaling bold intentions to compete directly in the next great chapter of space exploration. Mars may become the next frontier where Blue Origin and SpaceX, the two giants of the private space sector, measure their ambitions against one another. From here, let's pivot to a major policy development from Washington, one that could reshape how quickly companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin can advance their plans. On August 13th, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at accelerating the pace of commercial launches in the U.S. The order focuses on cutting back regulatory delays that have historically slowed launch licensing and infrastructure expansion. Transportation Secretary and acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy joined Trump for the signing, emphasizing that this measure was intended to unleash the next wave of innovation and secure America's leadership in orbit. Central to the directive is a call for the Department of Transportation to streamline how launch and reentry approvals are processed. That includes addressing long and complicated environmental reviews, which have been a major bottleneck for rocket programs. The order also instructs agencies to eliminate redundant permitting steps and clear the way for new spaceport construction, particularly in cases where multiple federal offices currently overlap in jurisdiction. Importantly, the order looks beyond today's rockets. It includes provisions to simplify approvals for emerging technologies, and such as orbital refueling, microgravity manufacturing, and other novel space activities. Under the new framework, NASA, the DoD, the Department of Defense, and the Office of Space Commerce are expected to coordinate more closely, reducing delays caused by overlapping responsibilities. A key flashpoint in the new directive is its treatment of state-level environmental laws, particularly the Coastal Zone Management Act, which has been central to the challenges against SpaceX's Starbase. The order implies such hurdles could be bypassed to speed commercial progress. Reactions have split sharply. FAA Administrator Brian Bedford praised the move for removing barriers and strengthening U.S. leadership, while Jared Margolis of the Center for Biological Diversity condemned it as reckless, warning it puts people and ecosystems at risk by sidelining bedrock protection. The order could accelerate the U.S. launch sector and give companies like SpaceX a major edge, but it also invites debate, scrutiny, and legal battles. The question is whether this measure represents necessary innovation or a tilt too far toward corporate power at the expense of the environment. SpaceX may be able to catch the ship sooner and in a more impressive way than anyone expected. This is not an exaggeration, as the very first V3 ship prototype has now been officially equipped with a brand new catching system. So what changes has SpaceX made to this system, and how will this decision affect both the catching capability and the schedule ahead? It's safe to say that all eyes at Starbase are now fixed on the preparations for Flight 10. This mission represents a pivotal step in the Starship program, and every move of the hardware is being carefully tracked. Yet while the near-term milestone is significant, it is equally important to recognize that SpaceX is also laying the groundwork for the future, with the long-anticipated V3 era beginning to take shape. The first V3 booster, B-18, appears to have completed its stacking process. This sets the stage for the next major development, the emergence of SV3, or Ship version 3. In recent weeks, a series of V3 nose cones have been revealed. marking one of the most exciting visual indicators of progress. Among them, the nose cone of Ship 39, the very first Ship V3, has advanced most significantly. Already equipped with a heat shield and a forward flap, this nose cone has now been stacked onto the payload section inside the Star Factory. This signals that S-39 is entering the full stack prototyping phase, which could move forward within days. What makes S-39 truly remarkable is not just its steady progress, but also the debut of an entirely new catching point system. This critical component was revealed when the nose cone was lifted for stacking. Upon closer inspection, it is clear that SpaceX has made bold changes to both the position and design of the catching point compared to earlier iterations. In previous versions, such as Ship V2, the catching point was located on the payload section. Now, for Ship V3, it has been moved higher up to the nose cone, closer to the very top of the vehicle. This relocation represents a fundamental redesign in how SpaceX envisions catching and recovering Starship. The design itself has also evolved. The current catching point is smaller than what we saw on Ship V2, though it's worth noting that it remains in a preliminary stage with only a stainless steel frame visible so far. Additional components and heat shield tiles are expected to be added as development continues. The structure consists of a semicircular section with a small pin on the outer edge designed to engage with the chopstick's landing rail. Unlike the simple protrusion of earlier versions, the new design incorporates a short supporting bar that leans against the ship, forming a right triangle-like structure. This adjustment likely enhances stability and distributes load more effectively, making it appear more robust and sustainable than the demonstration hardware tested in the past. Of course, with any major redesign, the implications extend far beyond the hardware itself. Relocating the catching point to the nose cone further emphasizes the growing role of this section of the ship. Recall that from V1 to V2, SpaceX had already shifted the forward flaps higher up the structure. Now, with both flaps and catching points positioned toward the top, the nose cone is emerging as a central hub for aerodynamic control and recovery operations. Meanwhile, the payload section can remain more dedicated to its core function, housing payloads, whether they be satellites, cargo, or eventually human crews. By separating these roles more cleanly, SpaceX reduces the risk that the physical stresses of catching will interfere with payload integrity. This distinction will be vital in future missions carrying high-value or sensitive payloads. However, these benefits also introduce new challenges. With the catching point closer to the forward flaps, the risk of unintended stress on these aerodynamic surfaces increases if the catch is not executed with perfect precision. Furthermore, by moving the catching point higher up where the body of the vehicle narrows, the margin for error becomes slimmer. The chopsticks will need to close with even greater accuracy to align with the smaller target area. Weight distribution is another concern. By concentrating critical catching hardware at the nose cone, more stress is placed at the very top of the vehicle. This may cause balance issues during the catch as the heavier lower sections of the ship could sway more freely. Such dynamics will demand precise engineering and careful operational planning. Yet if these hurdles can be overcome, the payoff will be extraordinary. Successfully catching Ship V3 with this new system would be a landmark achievement, underscoring SpaceX's ability to innovate at an unmatched pace and to push reusability technology far beyond what has been attempted before. It would not only validate the new design, but also cement Starship's path toward rapid turnaround and long-term sustainability. In summary, the unveiling of Ship 39's catching point represents more than a technical update. It symbolizes the beginning of a new era in Starship development, one where every component is being refined with reusability and scalability in mind. While questions remain and challenges must be addressed, the direction is clear. SpaceX is advancing toward a future where Starship is not only the most powerful rocket ever built, but also one of the most reusable and reliable. These are the upgrades and considerations that stand out most clearly with Ship V3's design. As development continues, further refinements will almost certainly be revealed. For now, all we can do is watch closely and wait for the moment when these ambitious concepts are put to the test. With the upgrade now applied to Ship 39, the central question becomes, will this ship be the one that SpaceX attempts to catch? The answer is far from certain. Musk himself recently tempered expectations, saying that while the chance of a catch this year is only a maybe, early next year carries much stronger confidence. This sets the stage for speculation as enthusiasts and analysts alike look toward S-39 and its role in the historic first ship catch. Many expect the first attempt could align with Flight 12, the inaugural V3 mission featuring S-39. Currently targeted for the end of this year, it presents a compelling opportunity. However, that opportunity hinges on the success of the remaining two V2 flights. Flight 10 must demonstrate a clean launch profile and complete its in-flight objectives, while Flight 11 is slated to attempt the very first ship catch. Only if both succeed will SpaceX have the foundation to even consider advancing to a V3 catch attempt. This alone makes the situation unpredictable, but even beyond these prerequisites, there are strong reasons why S-39 may not be caught. First, it will be the debut flight of the V3 configuration. Historically, SpaceX has used first flights of new designs to prove fundamentals rather than attempt high-risk operations. Flight 12 may therefore prioritize mission success, vehicle validation, and confidence building over the complexity of recovery. The catching point on S-39 itself further complicates matters. Although its presence is notable, the hardware still appears to be in the early stage of refinement. It may serve as a test bed, demonstrating structural integrity, re-entry endurance, and overall viability before being tasked with the extreme precision of a catch. In this sense, the inclusion of the catching point may be more about gathering data than executing a live recovery. Yet the timing of the first successful catch will be critical. Achieving this milestone marks the true transition of Starship into a fully reusable launch system, an achievement never before realized in aerospace. Such a breakthrough would unlock rapid launch cadence, dramatically reduce costs, and prove the systems required for ambitious goals like lunar landings and Mars colonization. Every month gained on this capability would give SpaceX a head start on tanker operations, orbital refilling tests, uncrewed demo flights, and ultimately, crewed missions. So, will the first ship catch happen with S-39 on Flight 12? The cautious answer leans toward no, at least not on the very first V3 attempt. But whether it happens late this year or in the early months of next, the significance is undeniable. Once SpaceX proves ship catching, Starship's true potential will finally be within reach. Beyond the catching point upgrades, the V3 era is beginning to make its presence known across nearly every system in Starship's infrastructure and hardware. This shift is not confined to the ship alone, but extends to the launch pads, the booster, and even the engines that will drive the program into its next chapter. When discussing the catching effort, Pad 2 naturally comes into focus. Designed with long-term service in mind, this pad incorporates notable changes such as an orbital launch mount equipped with a flame trench aimed at handling the immense forces and heat of the more powerful V3 system. Equally important are Pad 2's chopsticks, which are expected to feature modifications compared to their Pad 1 predecessors. These changes will likely be tailored specifically to align with the redesigned ship catching point found on V3 vehicles. Pad 2 itself is nearing completion with installation in its final stages. Once testing begins, the pad could be fully operational by the end of this year, perfectly timed to support the first V3 flights. But Pad 2 is only one piece of the broader picture. The transition to V3 infrastructure is also underway elsewhere. At Kennedy Space Center's LC-39A, construction continues with the integration of a flame trench similar to that at Starbase. Meanwhile, Starbase's Pad 1 is expected to undergo upgrades once it completes the last two launches of the current V2 hardware. These changes indicate a network-wide transition, ensuring that each site is prepared for the demands of the V3 era. On the hardware side, Superheavy Booster 18 has already offered a glimpse into the new generation of upgrades. During its stacking process, changes were observed in the fuel transfer tube, a modification intended to enhance efficiency and reliability. Musk also previewed an improved hot staging system, which is anticipated to appear soon in B-18's final configuration. Another notable change involves the grid fins. The redesigned fins are larger, differently shaped, and most importantly, integrated with their own catching points. These may be introduced after cryogenic testing or once engines are installed, marking a new phase in booster recovery technology. The scope of V3 enhancements does not end there. Superheavy will also see a larger overall size, reworked engine configurations, and the integration of Raptor 3 engines. Supporting this, Massey has already been outfitted with a new QD-V3 system, ready for the booster's first cryogenic tests. On the ship's side, upgrades will include an increased size, improvements to the heat shield, refinements to the payload bay, and integration of the new engine design. These collective developments illustrate the scale of the V3 transition. While some upgrades are already visible, others remain behind the scenes, waiting for their debut in coming months. Each modification represents not just incremental improvement, but the laying of groundwork for a fully reusable, rapidly deployable launch system. As V3 hardware moves closer to readiness, the industry awaits to see what other innovations SpaceX has yet to reveal and how they will redefine the future of Starship. Indeed, the final two Booster V1 and Ship V2 flights are critical stepping stones. Flight 10 has finished testing and targets launch on August 24th, while Flight 11 hardware has passed cryogenic trials and is preparing for static fires. If all goes well, both flights could occur in consecutive months, paving the way for the first V3 launch this year. Flight 10 will validate key capabilities, setting the stage for Flight 11, which may attempt the first catch. Their outcomes will shape the transition to V3 and preparations for 2026, which will be a pivotal year for Starship's future. Catching ships. This is the next bold milestone SpaceX must reach to unlock full rocket reusability, and the world is watching. The question is, when will it happen? Musk has offered new insight, revealing plans that may surprise some and spark debate, with potential to significantly shape Starship's future. So what exactly did he say, and how could it change the program's path ahead? Perhaps last year, many of us, myself included, truly believed that SpaceX would attempt its first Starship catching maneuver early this year. The anticipation remains as high as ever, but the reality has been more complicated than anyone hoped. In mid-May, Musk estimated that the first attempt to catch a Starship or ship could take place before the end of the year. This projection was later repeated during the company's discussion following Flight 9. At that point, there was still cautious optimism that the goal could be achieved within the 2025 calendar year. Now, however, that timeline is in question. In a recent interview with Tesla owners Silicon Valley, Musk did not commit to the same level of certainty. While he acknowledged that catching a ship before the year's end is still a possibility, his words carried more hesitation. Instead of a firm target, the phrasing shifted to maybe this year, with a much more confident statement that the first half of next year is the most likely timeframe. This shift in tone strongly suggests the first ship catch attempt may be delayed. The main reason lies in ongoing challenges from recent flights. Based on the outcomes of Flights 7, 8, and 9, SpaceX appears set to perform another ocean landing for the ship in Flight 10, avoiding a catch. Even the Superheavy booster will not be caught, as key objectives from Flight 9 remain incomplete. If this plan holds the earliest realistic chance to attempt catching both stages would be Flight 11, possibly between September and October. Hardware for that mission has already completed initial testing, and its status as the final version 2 Starship makes it a fitting candidate for high-risk trials. However, this hinges entirely on Flight 10's success. Any failure would likely push the first catch attempt to Flight 12. The 12th flight test, however, is expected to debut Starship V3. SpaceX may avoid adding the risk of a ship catch to the maiden flight of a new design, as a failed attempt could undermine confidence in V3. Given the challenges V2 has faced, V3 will be a critical step toward proving operational reliability. If so, if that's the case, neither of this year's remaining flights would be ideal for a first catch attempt, meaning the opportunity could slip to the second V3 mission early next year. Technical factors only add to this uncertainty. The ship faces a far more complex journey than the Superheavy booster. While the booster returns soon after separation, the ship must complete a full orbit, enduring extreme temperature shifts and pressure changes in the vacuum of space. Its primary defense is the heat shield, made of over 18,000 tiles, but this system has yet to meet SpaceX's standards. Previous flights have exposed weaknesses, and Musk has identified the heat shield as one of the Starship's two biggest ongoing challenges. Engine reliability is another concern. Across the 3 Starship flights this year, engine issues have repeatedly caused failures during ascent, orbital operations, and re-entry. For a ship catch to succeed, engines must operate flawlessly, and the cornerstones of a flawless operation are launching to orbit, executing the return burn, navigating to the site, and synchronizing precisely with the chopstick arms. Other risks include fuel leaks, COPV malfunctions, and flap fires, any of which could threaten a safe return. Even with a perfect flight profile, the catch itself is high risk. Timing and positioning must be exact, as even the smallest error could damage the ship, the tower, or surrounding infrastructure. Another key factor is ground system readiness. Catching a ship will likely require 2 operational launch towers, as attempting both stages with only one would be extremely difficult. The current chopsticks at Pad 1 are designed primarily for catching the Superheavy booster, not the ship. A specialized system for catching ships, or potentially both stages, is expected at Pad 2. Construction at the new pad has reached its basic structural stage, but installation work continues and no official testing has begun. At this pace, stable operation may not come until late in the year at the earliest. When considering the uncertain flight schedule, the V3 debut risk, and the technical readiness of both ship and ground systems, a ship catch attempt before the year's end appears far from certain. The outcome of Flight 10 will ultimately determine whether this milestone happens in 2025 or slips into 2026. So, what do you think? Can SpaceX make it happen this year, or will the wait continue? Indeed, the timing of SpaceX's first attempt to catch a Starship will have a significant impact on the company's long-term goals. This capability is not just another engineering milestone. It'll serve as the foundation for many of SpaceX's most ambitious future missions. One of the first major objectives that will depend on this skill is the construction of the orbital refilling system. Although SpaceX does not plan to reuse its Starship tankers in the early stages, the ability to perform a controlled landing using the most challenging recovery method will help optimize orbital launch operations. This efficiency is essential for building the infrastructure that will make refueling in space possible. According to Musk, the process of constructing this refilling system is scheduled to begin early next year. It's a crucial step that will pave the way for even greater missions, including delivering the Starship human landing system to the moon and sending Starships toward Mars. By mastering the technique of catching a ship sooner rather than later, SpaceX will give itself more time to fine-tune this refueling system and prepare for these deep space objectives. From the second half of 2026 onward, SpaceX aims to begin a new chapter in its mission roster. Musk has stated that he is targeting November or December of next year for the first uncrewed mission to Mars. Around the same time, SpaceX is expected to carry out an uncrewed lunar landing demonstration. These precursor missions will set the stage for fully operational crewed flights. In all of these scenarios, precision landing will be critical, and having mastered ship catching early would increase the likelihood of success. However, the importance of catching a ship at individual missions. This capability is a major step toward achieving full reusability, which will drastically reduce costs and accelerate the pace of launches. If humanity is to establish a sustained presence on the moon or Mars, SpaceX will need to launch a large number of Starships in rapid succession. Building bases on another world will be an expensive endeavor, and minimizing costs through complete rocket reusability will be essential. Full reusability also sets Starship apart from its competitors. Most rockets in use today, such as NASA's Space Launch System, ULA's Vulcan, or China's Long March series, are still expendable. Yet the competitive landscape is changing. Blue Origin's New Glenn, Rocket Lab's Neutron, Stoke Space's Nova, and several Chinese commercial rockets are all being developed with partial reusability in mind. These designs resemble the Falcon 9 approach, where only part of the vehicle is recovered. While these competitors remain far from matching Starship's capabilities, the gap could close over time. As the industry evolves, SpaceX must continue to lead by delivering breakthroughs that others have not yet achieved. Full reusability is not just a technical goal, it is the defining feature that could secure SpaceX's long-term leadership and competitiveness in the global space sector. Realizing these potentials, SpaceX has even more motivation to push forward with its ambitious efforts to catch the Starship upper stage. But before this bold milestone can be reached, the focus turns to Flight 10, a critical step in Starship's development and a mission that could greatly influence the program's trajectory. At present, final testing steps for both the booster and ship are still underway, with a launch target currently set for the end of August. These tests are not merely procedural, they are crucial opportunities for SpaceX to identify any flaws, large or small, that could jeopardize the mission. Every test run serves as a rehearsal for the real flight, allowing the engineers to catch potential weaknesses early and refine the systems before launch day. Among the many systems under scrutiny, the Raptor engine stands out as one of the most critical. For ship, engine performance is paramount in two distinctive phases. First, the engines must fire flawlessly at liftoff, propelling the massive rocket through Earth's atmosphere. Then, once in space, the Raptor vacuum engines must ignite for key maneuvers, guiding the ship to its intended trajectory and preparing for payload deployment. Finally, they must restart again to assist in deceleration, navigation, and controlled landing. This is a demanding sequence, and history has shown it is far from trivial. On all 3 Starship flights this year, the upper stage has faced engine-related issues that cut missions short. SpaceX's response to these challenges has been swift. For instance, during preparations for Flight 10, engineers identified an issue with the Raptor vacuum engine on S-37 and opted to replace it entirely. This proactive step signals the company's intent to leave nothing to chance when it comes to propulsion. Another persistent concern is leakage, an issue that plagues all space vehicles to some degree. Leaks can originate from the engines, fuel tanks, or various pressurization systems, and even small ones can prove catastrophic. For Starship, preventing leaks is not just about mission success, it's about ensuring safety and reliability for a vehicle designed for rapid reuse. Protecting sensitive systems on both S-37 and Booster 16 will be essential in withstanding the extreme stresses of launch, flight, and landing. B-16 in particular faces a grueling set of maneuvers during Flight 10. The booster will attempt a higher angle of attack return profile, an aggressive landing flip, and a touchdown using only 2 engines. Each of these tasks will push the limits of the vehicle's durability and stability. The booster's hot staging system, where the ship's engines ignite before stage separation, is another component under close watch, as it must operate flawlessly for the rest of the mission to proceed smoothly. Meanwhile, S-37 has its own series of demanding objectives. Beyond the mid-flight engine reignition, it must successfully deploy its payload, a step that has been hindered in the past by problems with the payload door. Resolving these mechanical issues is critical to the flight's success. Then comes one of the most punishing phases of any Starship mission, atmospheric reentry. Here, the heat shield becomes the ship's primary line of defense against searing plasma and intense aerodynamic forces. SpaceX plans to experiment during Flight 10 by removing sections of the heat shield in specific areas and testing new tile materials. While risky, these experiments are vital for developing a heat shield design that is both effective and easier to maintain flights. Once through reentry, S-37 will aim for a controlled landing in the ocean, a step short of a catch, but a necessary precursor to attempting one in future flights. These tasks form the core of SpaceX's goals for Flight 10. Even without a catch attempt, the mission is a critical milestone. Success would bring Starship closer to full, rapid reusability. Catching the ship remains central to SpaceX's long-term vision of lowering space access costs and advancing Starship operations. Yet, with many technical hurdles ahead, timelines and strategies may need to shift. For now, the focus is on the next flights, beginning with Flight 10. If SpaceX can achieve smooth engine performance, leak-free systems, resilient hardware, and a safe reentry, it'll set the stage for the day when a Starship upper stage is caught and quickly flown again. The challenges are high, but so are the rewards. The countdown is on, and soon the world will see if Flight 10 can deliver. SpaceX's ultimate goal has always been clear: Mars. From the beginning, the company has aimed to make life multiplanetary. Now that vision is accelerating. Recent announcements from both SpaceX and Elon Musk reveal renewed focus and key steps toward future Mars missions. How will these updates shape the Starship program and the company's broader strategy? For anyone who has followed the evolution of SpaceX and its Starship program, the changes over the past few years have been nothing short of dramatic. From new launch complexes and upgraded ground support to successive vehicle revisions, every element has advanced rapidly. Now, as we enter the second half of 2025, those developments carry clear purpose, paving the way for humanity's first steps on Mars. SpaceX's most ambitious objective has always been to make life multiplanetary, and recent signals show that this goal is moving to the top of the company's agenda. A striking example is the complete redesign of SpaceX's website. The opening banner is now a vivid animation of Mars, paired with the bold declaration, "Making life multiplanetary." Directly below, a section labeled "Revolutionizing Space Technology" highlights Starship, Further down, modules remind us of SpaceX's current strengths. It is the world's leading launch service provider, thanks to Falcon rockets and reusable boosters. It is advancing human spaceflight with Crew Dragon and bespoke spacesuits, and it is delivering high-speed internet from space via the Starlink constellation. This hierarchy of topics on SpaceX's homepage reveals how the company views its priorities. Falcon and Dragon operations are already mature, Starlink continues to expand, and spacesuit development supports crewed missions. Those elements will remain essential, but now they play a supporting role to Starship and the Mars vision, which require unprecedented focus and resources. Deadlines are looming. Musk recently announced plans for an uncrewed Starship mission to Mars as early as the 2026 launch window, with prototype humanoid Optimus robots aboard. That revelation was grouped under the Making Life Multiplanetary banner, with milestones spelled out: City on Mars, Landing Mars, First Human on Mars, and the year 2026. To achieve those objectives, SpaceX must complete several key technical feats. First and foremost, Starship must fly reliably, carry and deploy payloads, and land safely. In its current form, the booster, Superheavy, has demonstrated stable liftoff and stage separation, but the upper stage has struggled to nail landing burns. To date, Ship V1 and V2 have experienced failures during descent and touchdown. Every revision addresses lessons learned, but the problem persists. Re-entry heating, attitude control, and precision throttle management must all work perfectly. Payload deployment remains another challenge. To support Mars missions, Starship must be able to jettison satellite constellations, install orbital refueling interfaces, and open cargo bays reliably. A test of relighting the engine in space has been conducted only once successfully, and the mechanisms for opening and closing the payload door still require refinement. Those capabilities will form the bedrock of Mars operations, where Starship will need to unload habitats, life support systems, and supplies. Catching Superheavy with the Megazilla Tower arms is another critical milestone. SpaceX has only demonstrated a clean catch of the booster twice, and each time the arms misfired or the booster slightly clipped a support. Consistent, reliable catching would save the engines and structure from saltwater damage and speed up turnaround. Musk has said he expects to achieve a perfect catch later this year, ideally in Flight 11 or on the first run of Starship V3, the next major vehicle variant. V3 is a larger, more capable version. At roughly 408 feet tall with structural reinforcements and streamlined plumbing, V3 will deliver more thrust and improved reliability. It is intended to become the standard Starship model for marsupial cargo missions. Booster 18 is already stacked for V3 integration at Megabay. If SpaceX can install the new Raptor 3 engines by the end of August or early September and roll the first V3 stack into the test stand shortly thereafter, the first V3 flight could occur before the end of the year. Another cornerstone of Mars readiness is orbital refueling. Without refueling in Earth orbit, Starship could never carry enough propellant to reach Mars and perform landing operations. Refueling itself involves transferring cryogenic methane and oxygen between two Starship vehicles in microgravity, an operation that has never been attempted before. Musk has set an informal deadline of late 2025 to prove in-orbit refueling works. If successful, this capability unlocks interplanetary missions and allows Starship to scale to dozens of launches per window. As SpaceX masters these techniques, rocket catching, engine relighting, cryogenic fluid transfer, payload handling, the path to Mars becomes clearer. Flight 10, anticipated in early to mid-August, represents a crucial test. After a string of problematic flights, Flight 10 must demonstrate full mission success: liftoff, stage separation, payload bay operations, reignition, heat shield performance, and a controlled landing on the drone ship. In that scenario, the crew will achieve core technical objectives and gain confidence for the uncrewed Mars shot in 2026. Should Flight 10 succeed, Flight 11 would attempt both stage catching and in-orbit engine relight. Those dual objectives will push the envelope further. If either test fails, SpaceX may pivot to Starship V3 for a more robust platform, but Musk has pledged that these advancements will happen this year. Watch for live updates on X from the Starbase launch tower. Musk has promised a live technical update shortly before the next flight, covering progress to date and future engineering plans. Given the Martian emphasis, that briefing will almost certainly delve into preparations for Mars missions and timelines for refueling and V3 rollout. SpaceX's revised web messaging also points to infrastructure growth. Under revolutionizing space technology, the site lists pad locations: Starbase, LC-39A, SLC-40, and a newly rendered LC-37. SpaceX recently acquired the former LC-37 complex from ULA, where Delta IV Heavy once flew. A 3D depiction shows twin launch towers and high base structures mirroring Starbase's design. These upgrades will increase Starbase launch cadence, ensuring sufficient pad capacity for dozens of missions per year, and ultimately supporting Mars operations in coordination with NASA. Musk's roadmap is straightforward: uncrewed Starship touchdown on Mars in 2026, 5 landers, ferry rovers, habitats, and propellant depots, and the clock starts on in-situ resource utilization. Beginning with the 2028 window, successive launch waves, up to 20 Starships every 26 months, deliver larger habitats, power arrays, and the first crew, likely in 2030. Early life unfolds under pressurized domes. Excursions follow in purpose-built Mars suits. Success hinges on rugged hardware and tight NASA cooperation. Dust storms, radiation, and brutal temperature swings demand redundancy, while CLPS-style partnerships could merge commercial speed with agency oversight. Near-term proof points are clear: flawless static fires and Mechazilla catches on Flights 10 and 11. The first stacked Starship V3 igniting before year-end, an orbital refueling demo, and Musk's promised technical briefing. Check every box, and 2026 landers stay on schedule. Miss one, and human flights slip to 2028. SpaceX has reordered its entire playbook around this goal: new website, V3 acceleration, refueling R&D, and round-the-clock work at Starbase. Now, flight tests must confirm the vision. Believe in the plan? Type "Go to Mars," hit like, and stay with us as SpaceX tries to write the next chapter of human exploration. Now, if Mars is SpaceX's ultimate goal, where does that leave the rest of its ambitions? Among the many objectives SpaceX is pursuing, the moon mission remains one of the most urgent. While the vision of reaching Mars captures the imagination, the timeline for a crewed lunar landing is rapidly approaching. Under NASA's Artemis program, SpaceX is expected to deliver a functional Starship human landing system prototype and complete an uncrewed demonstration mission by 2026, all in preparation for a 2027 crewed landing. This is a massive undertaking, and concerns are growing that an intense focus on Mars might divert resources or attention from the moon. So far, physical signs of the HLS version are minimal. Aside from a single nose cone at Starbase and a few conceptual diagrams, the hardware for this mission remains largely behind the scenes. The stakes are high. Unlike Mars, where timelines are more flexible, the moon effort is a tightly coordinated, internationally watched mission involving multiple organizations and partners. For the United States, Artemis is as much about maintaining global leadership as it is about exploration. Delays could allow rivals, especially China, to claim a symbolic and strategic edge. With China moving steadily toward its own lunar goals, including crewed missions and infrastructure on the moon, the pressure on the US is greater than ever. Meanwhile, questions also surround the role of Falcon rockets and Dragon capsules in SpaceX's long-term roadmap. While the company has confirmed that it will no longer produce new Dragon capsules, the system remains a pillar of current operations. Falcon 9 continues to dominate satellite launches and crew transport with a reliability record that has helped build global confidence in SpaceX's capabilities. Despite Dragon's planned phase-out, it and Falcon still play an active and important role. Both systems are highlighted prominently on SpaceX's website and continue to receive new contracts from NASA and other agencies. Their continued use is not just practical, it is essential to keeping America's spaceflight infrastructure functional and competitive while Starship develops. In fact, that balance appears deliberate. SpaceX is clearly preparing for a future led by Starship, but the company is not abandoning its proven assets. Instead, it is pursuing a dual strategy: build the future while sustaining the systems that still carry much of the load today. As for the moon, there are signs that SpaceX's commitment remains strong. The HLS model is featured in the company's own promotional materials, including the Revolutionizing Space Technology section of its website, where it is shown with its distinctive elevator system for crew and cargo transfer. Furthermore, plans to construct 2 Starship-capable launch towers at SLC-37 in Florida suggest the company is investing in infrastructure to support future lunar operations. With an anticipated Starship update from Musk on the horizon, many expect a fresh round of announcements concerning the HLS variant and its supporting systems.
These will be critical in reassuring partners that Mars is not being prioritized at the cost of near-term obligations. Still, it is clear where SpaceX's long-term vision lies. No other private or national entity has shown such single-minded determination to reach Mars. For SpaceX, interplanetary travel is not just a goal. It is the company's founding purpose. And with China advancing on multiple fronts, including its Tianwen-3 sample return mission, the race to the Red Planet is quickly becoming a geopolitical contest. Mars remains the most promising destination for sustained human presence beyond Earth. It offers the conditions most favorable for long-term habitation and represents the next great leap in human exploration. Whoever reaches it first and establishes a foothold will define the next era of spaceflight. For SpaceX, the path forward depends entirely on Starship. It is the vessel that will enable missions to the Moon, to Mars, and perhaps beyond. With its massive payload capacity and potential for rapid reuse, Starship could change everything. But that potential remains unrealized until SpaceX can prove it in flight. The upcoming launches will be pivotal. After months of slower progress due to technical and regulatory challenges, SpaceX must demonstrate that Starship is not only viable but superior. The success of these flights will determine whether the company can meet its ambitious goals or must further revise its timeline. So the final question is, can SpaceX deliver on its vision, and can it do so before the window of opportunity narrows? One thing is certain, the clock is ticking, and the future of space exploration may well hinge on the answer. This has been Kevin with Great SpaceX. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already to stay up to date with yours truly on the latest milestones in SpaceX's journey. Thank you so much for watching, and always remember, curiosity, imagination, and inspiration will follow you so long as you keep looking up.